probably seen my face. Maybe on a billboard towering over Times Square selling perfume that costs more than your monthly rent. Or maybe splashed across a glossy magazine cover at the grocery store checkout, my eyes staring back at you while you debate buying that extra bar of chocolate. I'm Anna, and for the better part of a decade, my body has been my business. It's a strange thing to make a living by being looked at. You learn to build a second skin, a persona that can withstand the glare of 1,000 camera flashes and the weight of 1,000,000 judging eyes. My persona is fearless. She's the girl who will hang from a wire off a skyscraper for the perfect shot, the one who will lie naked on a bed of ice and make it look like a warm embrace. She is everything I am not. She is a shield, a beautifully crafted piece of armor made of flesh and bone. People see her, this fearless creature, and they think they see me. They think because they've seen every curve of my body, every angle of my face, that they know me. And that's exactly how I want it. The truth is, I'm a ghost hiding inside a glass house. The whole grand performance, the career built on radical exposure, it all started from a single moment of gut-wrenching shame. It feels like a lifetime ago, back when I was just a girl with a secret I thought was safe. It wasn't some dark, twisted secret, just one of those deeply personal, embarrassing things from childhood that you carry with you like a smooth, worn stone in your pocket. It was mine. And then one day, it wasn't. A girl I called my best friend, someone I'd trusted with that fragile piece of myself, decided to make it public. She didn't just tell one person, she broadcast it in the crowded high school cafeteria, her voice ringing with the kind of casual cruelty only a teenager can muster. I can still feel the heat of 100 pairs of eyes on me, the way the laughter felt like physical blows. In that moment, I felt more naked than I ever have on any photo shoot. They had taken something from inside me and pinned it up for everyone to see. I lost control, so I made a vow to myself in the echoing silence of that humiliation. I would never let anyone have that power over me again. I would take control of the narrative. I would show them everything on my own terms. I'd peel back the layers of clothing myself, lay my body bare for the entire world, and in doing so, I'd build a wall around my soul so high and so thick that no one could ever touch it. The ultimate paradox. My public nudity became my most private shield. But lately, something has changed. The feeling of being watched, which has been the constant humming background noise of my life for years, has developed a new and terrifying texture. It's different from the impersonal gaze of the public or the focused lens of a photographer. This is a singular, predatory focus. It started subtly, a fleeting reflection in the polished surface of a limousine window, a figure standing just a little too still in my periphery, the kind of thing you dismiss, a trick of the light, an overactive imagination fueled by caffeine and jet lag. Then it became more concrete. In the background of a paparazzi shot, behind the cluster of photographers, there would be a shape. Not a person exactly, more like a smudge, a distortion in the air where a person should be. Always there, always indistinct. This presence, this stalker, feels different because it isn't interested in the woman on the billboard. I can feel it in a primal gut-level way that it's not looking at my body, it's looking through it. It's searching for the cracks in my glass house, for the ghost hiding inside. It wants the secrets. It wants to do what my friend did all those years ago, but not with a childish taunt in a cafeteria. It wants to do it with the whole world as its audience. And that thought, that cold, slithering dread, terrifies me more than any physical threat ever could. It's the fear of being truly, completely seen. The first real incident, the one that proved this wasn't just paranoia, happened in Paris. It was the end of Fashion Week, a chaotic blur of runway shows, after parties, and flashbulbs that left you feeling hollowed out and buzzing at the same time. I had retreated to the quiet, sterile luxury of my suite at the Le Bristol, a place that was supposed to be a fortress of privacy. The door was bolted, the security detail was downstairs, and the thick, soundproof windows muffled the distant heartbeat of the city. I remember stripping off the couture gown, leaving it in a shimmering puddle on the floor, and feeling the exhaustion finally settle into my bones. This was my ritual, the shedding of the public skin and the slow, quiet return to myself. I made tea, I put on some soft, worn-out pajamas that no designer would ever be caught dead in, and I sat down at the antique desk with my laptop. It's an old, battered machine I've had for years, completely offline. It's never been connected to the internet, not once. It's my journal, my sanctuary, the one place where my thoughts are entirely my own. I was ready to write, to pour out the anxiety and the exhaustion of the week on some blank page that would never be seen by anyone. But when I opened the laptop, it was already on. The screen glowed in the dim light of the room, and my breath caught in my throat. That was wrong. I always shut it down completely. A single file was open on the otherwise empty desktop. It was a photograph. My heart started a slow, heavy drumbeat against my ribs. The photograph was of me. Not from a magazine, not from a runway. It was me right now, in this room. I was sitting at the desk, in my worn-out pajamas, one hand raised to rub the exhaustion from my eye. It was a moment of pure, unvarnished vulnerability. A moment so private, so mundane, I wouldn't even have remembered it happening. The quality was perfect, the lighting was soft and intimate, as if the photographer had been standing right next to me, breathing the same air. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the angle. It was taken from high up, from the corner of the ceiling where it met the wall, a spot where there was nothing but ornate plaster molding. An impossible, phantom perspective. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. My body went cold all the way to the marrow of my bones. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room, replaced by something thick and heavy. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. A camera? A drone? But the windows were sealed shut. The hotel was one of the most secure in the world. I slowly, deliberately closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. I stood up and did a slow, methodical sweep of the room. I checked the locks on the door, still bolted from the inside. I ran my hands along the walls, the ceiling, searching for any lens, any pinprick, any sign of violation. There was nothing. I called security, my voice a strained, quiet whisper. 2 stone-faced men came up and searched the suite from top to bottom. They were polite, thorough, and utterly baffled. They found no cameras, no recording devices, no sign of forced entry. They brought in a tech expert who scanned my laptop. He found no malware, no remote access Trojans, no trace of an internet connection ever. The photograph file itself had no data, no timestamp, no camera information, nothing. It was a digital ghost. As they finally left, giving me apologetic shrugs and promising a full investigation, I knew they wouldn't find anything. This wasn't a person who had broken in. It was something else. I sat on the edge of the bed in the silent, sterile room, feeling that phantom lens still crawling on my skin, and I understood the message. This wasn't just a threat. It was a statement. The locks don't matter. The walls don't matter. Your most private spaces are a stage for me, and your most hidden self is the only thing I care to see. I am already inside.
I fled Paris the next morning, leaving a trail of canceled appointments and confused assistants. I needed my own space, my fortress. My print house in Manhattan is a monument to minimalism and control. White walls, polished concrete floors, floor-to-ceiling windows that offer a godlike view of the city, but are made of one-way glass, so tinted no one can see in. It's less a home and more a gallery with only one exhibit, me. It's sterile, cold, and most importantly, secure. After Paris, I had the entire place swept again. New locks, new security codes, a team of specialists who scanned for every conceivable type of bug. They found nothing. I told myself I was being prudent. I told myself it was an isolated incident, a sophisticated prank by a rival or an obsessed fan. But a part of me knew that was a lie. The real sanctuary, the true vault, wasn't the penthouse. It was a simple, leather-bound journal I kept hidden in a safe behind a featureless white panel in my closet. My offline laptop was for my day-to-day thoughts. But the journal, That was for the things I couldn't even admit to myself. The raw, unfiltered shame, the ugly, repressed memories, the ghost of the girl in the cafeteria. One night, a week after returning, I woke up with a jolt. The air in the apartment was different, colder, heavier. There was no sound, but the silence itself felt wrong, like it was listening. I slipped out of bed, my feet silent on the cold concrete. Every shadow seemed to stretch and writhe in the ambient city light filtering through the windows. The living room was empty. The kitchen, empty. I moved towards my walk-in closet, my heart a frantic bird against my ribs. The closet door was ajar. Just a crack. A crack I knew with absolute certainty I had closed. Inside, my clothes hung like a row of silent witnesses. Everything was in its place, meticulously organized by color and designer. But the white panel at the back of the closet, the one that looked like just another part of the wall, was open. The safe behind it was also open, its heavy steel door swung wide open, and inside, where my journal should have been, there was only empty space. It was gone. But that wasn't the scare. The scare was what was left in its place. Sitting perfectly in the center of the velvet-lined safe was a single, glossy photograph. It was a picture of the journal itself, lying open on a stranger's desk, and on the open page in my own handwriting was the last entry I had ever written. An entry about the incident in Paris. An entry detailing my fear that someone was watching me, that someone was inside my head. The horror wasn't just that they had been here. The horror was that they knew. They knew what I was most afraid of, and they had taken the one thing that held all my other fears. I didn't call the police this time. What would I tell them? That a ghost had phased through my walls and stolen my diary? They would think I was having a breakdown, and maybe I was. For the next few days, I lived in a state of hyper-vigilant denial. I hired a new, more expensive security firm. I had bars, almost invisible from the outside, installed on my impenetrable windows. I brought a state-of-the-art alarm system that used pressure plates and laser grids. I was turning my home into a prison, and I was the willing inmate. My agent called frantic. "Anna, what is going on? You're missing fittings, you're not answering calls, people are talking." I'd mumble excuses, exhaustion, about a flu. I tried to act normal. I went to a photo shoot, the familiar ritual of hair, makeup, and blinding lights, a comforting balm on my frayed nerves. I stood in front of the camera, my body contorting into the familiar shapes of desire and confidence, my face a mask of serene professionalism. For a few hours, I could almost believe everything was fine. I was in control. But then it began. It started on a trashy celebrity gossip blog, one of those bottom-feeding sites that usually just rehashes paparazzi photos. The headline was innocuous: Anna's inner thoughts. The post was short. It contained a single, unattributed quote. "Sometimes I feel like my whole life is a performance for an audience I can't see, and I'm terrified they'll start booing." My blood ran cold. It was a direct quote from my journal, page 37. It was the point of no return. My denial shattered, replaced by a frantic, all-consuming terror. I spent every waking moment online, a digital ghost myself, scouring the dark corners of the internet. More quotes began to appear. They were scattered, posted anonymously on forums, in the comment sections of articles, on obscure social media accounts. Each one was a tiny shard of my soul ripped from the pages of my journal and held up for public inspection. I still have nightmares about the cafeteria. The sound of their laughter is the soundtrack to my failures. Another one, a day later. He looks at me with such pride, but if he knew who I really was, he would hate me. They were taken out of context, twisted into something salacious and pathetic. The narrative was slipping from my grasp. The public, that fickle beast I had so carefully courted, began to turn. The comment sections were a cesspool of speculation. She's losing it. Total diva meltdown. I knew she wasn't as perfect as she looked. My friends started calling, their voices laced with a sickening mixture of concern and morbid curiosity. Anna, are you okay? We saw this thing online. They were all looking at me differently. The admiration was gone, replaced with pity. That same look from the cafeteria, all those years ago. They weren't just seeing my body anymore. They thought they were seeing my secrets. They were consuming my shame, and I was utterly powerless to stop it. The carefully constructed wall between my public persona and my private self was dissolving, and I was being left naked in a way I had never imagined. The second encounter was not subtle. It was a declaration of war. I was at a charity gala, an event that I had been forced to attend by my publicist to show a brave face. I was wearing a backless, blood-red gown, a piece of armor designed to scream confidence. But I felt like a raw nerve. Every glance felt like an accusation, every whispered conversation a judgment. I escaped to the restroom, the cavernous marble and gold space blessedly empty. I leaned against the cold sink, staring at my reflection in the massive mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide with a fear that no amount of makeup could hide. I splashed cold water on my face, took a deep breath, and looked up again. For a split second, my reflection changed. It was still me, but it was wrong. The face looking back was smooth, featureless like a mannequin's. There were no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a blank expanse of skin. But I could feel it looking at me. I could feel its silent, screaming judgment. The reflection's head tilted, a slow, unnatural movement, and then its blank face began to distort, to ripple, as if something was pushing out from behind it. The skin stretched, thinned, and tore open, not with a mouth, but with a jagged black void. From that void, I heard a sound, a chorus of whispers. It was the laughter from the cafeteria, the pitying voices of my friends, the venomous comments from online forums, all layered on top of each other, a cacophony of my deepest fears. I stumbled back, my heart seizing in my chest. I blinked, and my reflection was normal again. Just me. Pale, terrified me. But the whispers remained, echoing in the opulent silence of the restroom, and I knew with chilling certainty that the stalker was no longer just in the background. It was right in front of me. It was wearing my face.
The world began to close in. The leaks from the journal grew more frequent, more intimate, more damning. My agents dropped me. Designers who had once begged me to wear their clothes now refused to be associated with my unstable brand. I was a pariah. The public spectacle of my unraveling was far more fascinating than the spectacle of my body had ever been. I was trapped in a nightmare version of my own creation. The shame I had tried to outrun my entire life had finally caught up to me, and it was consuming me whole, bite by excruciating bite. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just sat in my sterile penthouse, the prison I had built for myself, and watched my life burn down on a dozen different screens. There was only one thing left to do. One final, desperate act of control. I would take back the narrative. I would set my fire myself. I called Diane Finch, the most respected and feared journalist in the country. I told her I wanted to do a live, exclusive interview, no questions off limits. I was going to tell the world everything. I would confess all my secrets, lay bare every last ounce of my shame on my own terms. It was the ultimate act of exposure, a final, defiant attempt to reclaim my own story before it was completely stolen from me. The studio was freezing. The lights were so bright they hurt, bleaching all the color from the world and leaving only a stark, clinical reality. I sat opposite Diane, a dozen cameras pointed at me like a firing squad.
Millions of people were watching. I could feel their collective gaze, a physical weight resting down on me. I started to talk. I told them about the cafeteria, about the shame, about building a career on a foundation of fear. I confessed my insecurities, my anxieties, my petty jealousies. With every secret I offered up, I felt a strange sense of release, of dizzying lightness. I was purging the poison. I was winning. Diane watched me, her expression unreadable. "Anna," she said, her voice cutting through my manic confession, "there's one more thing. A final leak. It appeared online just moments ago." A screen flickered to life beside her. My face, 20 years younger, filled the monitor. It was video. A grainy, home movie quality clip I hadn't seen since I was a child. But it wasn't the video that mattered. It was the text that appeared beneath it. A final, devastating entry from my journal. The one secret I had never even fully admitted to myself, buried so deep it was practically a part of my DNA. The words burned on the screen for the entire world to see. It was about my father. About how when I was 14, confused and desperate for affection I couldn't find anywhere else, I had gone to his room one night. It detailed in my own childish, terrified handwriting how I had initiated something terrible and wrong, and then how the shame and guilt had become so unbearable that I had twisted the story, reversed the roles, and told my mother a lie that had sent him to prison, branded him a monster, a pedophile, a lie that had destroyed him. As I read the words on the screen, the studio, the lights, the cameras, it all fell away. The sound in my ears was a deafening roar. My carefully controlled confession, my final act of defiance, had been a trap. This wasn't me taking control. This was my execution. The whispers from the restroom returned, now a deafening shout inside my skull. The laughter, the pity, the disgust. I looked at the monitor, at my own face staring back from the screen, and for a second it warped. The features moved over the eyes and mouth, vanishing into a blank canvas of skin. It tilted its head. The black void ripped open where its mouth should be. And this time, the sound that came out was my own scream, but it was silent. I was screaming, my throat raw, but no sound was coming out. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every agonizing, silent second. The world wasn't just watching me unravel, they were watching me disappear.
The aftermath was a silent, empty ruin. My penthouse, once a temple of minimalist control, was now a landscape of my shattered psyche. Clothes were strewn across the floor, broken glass glittered on the concrete, and every screen was dark. I don't know how long I was like that, a ghost in my own mausoleum. Days? Weeks? Time had lost its meaning. All that was left was the humming silence and the quiet echo of global humiliation. My attempt to control the narrative had resulted in the ultimate loss of control. A public self-immolation so complete it had erased the person I used to be. The shame I had tried to armor myself against with a shield of public nudity had finally found the cracks. Not in my body, but in my soul. And it had poured in like acid, dissolving everything. One evening, as the city lights began to prick the twilight sky, I found myself standing in front of the large, floor-to-ceiling mirror in my bedroom. It was cracked, a spiderweb of fractures radiating from a single point of impact I didn't remember making. I looked at my reflection, or rather the 100 fractured reflections looking back at me. A shard of an eye here, a piece of a mouth there, a broken mosaic of a broken woman. And then, in the largest central piece of the mirror, I saw her, the featureless face, the blank mannequin stare. The stalker. She was looking back at me,
Not with menace, but with a kind of serene understanding. And in that moment, the final, horrifying truth clicked into place. There was no stalker. There was no break-in. No one had stolen my journal. I had done it. I had leaked my own secrets, a slow, methodical, psychological purge. The incident in Paris, the photo on my laptop, a dissociative fugue, a desperate cry from a part of my mind that could no longer bear the weight of the lies. The stalker was me, a manifestation of my own self-loathing, the part of me that believed I deserved to be exposed, to be punished, the part that had never forgiven the girl in the cafeteria or the girl who had sent her own father to prison. I looked at the fractured, featureless face in the mirror, and slowly, a smile spread across my own lips. It felt alien, a pulling of muscles I hadn't used in a lifetime. The whispers in my head went silent, the laughter faded. There was only a profound, terrifying peace. I had spent my entire life terrified of being truly seen, of having my deepest self exposed. And now, I finally was. Utterly, completely, and irrevocably naked. And as I stared into the broken mirror at the beautiful horror of my own ruined mind, I finally felt free.
The horrors linger. Thank you so much for watching or listening. By liking and subscribing, you're helping me summon the next chilling tale from the shadows. Join our community of the brave and prepare for what's to come.